The Eastern Cape Department of Education this morning will be briefing the media about its state of readiness for the 2022 academic year. This as the province prepares for the reopening of schools in the 4 coastal provinces on Wednesday. Yesterday, the department said close to 1,400 learners have still not been placed in school due to late applications. In a while, we'll be talking to... All right, let's take you there live.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps it is imperative that I mention that the department has been faced with the budgetary constraints which have led to the delays in the delivery of some of the resources required by schools for the teaching and learning. However, we managed through the collaboration with other stake organs such as Provincial Treasury and DPE to make interventions that enable us to deliver to our own mandate as the sector. The following are plans in place that have been put by the department to ensure that teaching and learning takes place on the 19th of January 2022 as schools reopened. On learner admissions, most of our districts have concluded the process of learner admissions in all grades. This process has seen 1,688,105 learners being placed out of the total of 1,688,155 learners that needed space in our institutions of learning. The remaining 831 learners from Sarah Patman, Buffalo City, Joe Kabi, and Nelson Mandela Metro districts still have to be placed. Each of those districts have managed to come with a plan to secure space for learners in their respective districts. We are confident that no learner will be left behind and as such not gone to school in the province. On the learner support material, the department experienced again the budget shortfalls for the procurement of the learner support for the 2022 academic year. And again, however, we have asked for intervention by the DPE, Provincial Treasury, and the Office of the Premier, an amount of 267,699,000. And that was made available in December 2021 to the department for the purchasing of the learner support material. This therefore meant that the procurement process related to this amount could only start then at time when the most of our own key role players were already winding up for December holidays, and effectively the procurement process were concluded in January 2022 with the appointment letters issued successfully to the bidders in this particular regard. The commitment by the department to ensure that learners receive what is due to them meant that it has to move with the desired speed, hence the different phases in the deliveries. As per the delivery schedule, phase 1, which is consisted of 748 schools, has been completed now. This is because there was a stock available from 2 manufacturers valued to 8 million rands. Again, phase 2 will ensure delivery of books to 1,614 schools in the 12 districts from the stock that was at the department's Wilsonia warehouse valued at 26 million rands. The deliveries commenced on the 12th of January and will be concluded on the 21st of January, which is this coming week. As part of phase 3, the deliveries will resume on Wednesday, that is the 19th of January, for the 800 schools. It should be noted that this phase will run concurrently with phase 2 so that we can manage the learning and teaching environment in the institutions without any hiccups. In phase 4, The awarding of letters which have been drafted on the 17th of January, will be given to the suppliers today, which is 18th, and the remaining deliveries are expected to resume on the 24th of January. We have taken a decision to time frame all this particular process, trying to mitigate the impact that we had in relation to the resourcing of this particular function. Remember, the learner support material is a critical component in any education institutions in the country. So once you have got some glitches, whether in the form of procurement, whether in the form of concessions with the Treasury, or whether in the form of concessions with either publishers that write books and whatever, you are likely to have a problem. So that's why we have to time frame so that we can deal with it and close it within the first week of reopening of the schools, so that we don't have that much damage that it might cause. All schools have received the DPE workshops for all subjects from grade R to grade 9, except 18 schools whose status is still verified. This means that our schools will be able to start with teaching and learning on the first day of the schooling. Ladies and gentlemen, the department wishes to thank the schools management, SGPs, who were able to implement their return policies for the textbooks during the previous academic year. The department has a budget has a budget that boards the LTSM at a tune of 1 billion rands in 2016. So the life cycle of a learner support material is 5 years in relation to the policy. So the retrieval rate of 98% assists the department, as all schools have textbooks and are only waiting for a top-ups. The department has allocated the amount of 53,539,800 for the topping up of the shortages as requisite by the schools. I think we must explain this one, SG. When you speak of whether the schools have got books or not in the province, you will have to come back here. What is the meaning of schools not having book whilst you have purchased book at 1 billion rands in 2016? Are you then saying these books have been lost in the process? Or are you saying these books never existed in the first place? Because you can't have schools not having books whilst you purchase at a rate of 1 billion rands in 2016. And understanding the fact that the lifespan of a learner support material in the context of a book is a 5-year. So what is critical here is how the schools, in particular the SMTs, retrieve books from the learners as they exit the system, and ensure that the generation of other learners that are coming after those ones are able to utilize the very same material that have been purchased by the Department of Education. So otherwise, if we don't tighten up our belt on this one, you run a risk of buying books almost every year. And in essence, you run a risk of purchasing books for the sake of purchasing them, and in the process not being able to do other important priorities of the department. Hence, I'm then saying we must come back and make that particular assessment. But from the assessment that we have made, we have come to realize that no. Our retrieval rate policy is at 98% in relation to textbooks. So meaning that we can only make some top-ups for those that might not have books, precisely because of changing of the admissions from one school to another school, from one province to another province. As you would understand that there is that migration of learners, inter-provincial and inter-districts and forth. So on learner furniture, Program Director, a total of 51,862 items which was available in the warehouse in 2021 was distributed to all schools in all districts. Learner increased numbers as schools open will be attended as schools indicated in the audit process as they are opening. You will also understand that today is the day that principals in the majority of cases are sitting. They are planning sessions through at the SMTs. So some of the issues that might be to tighten up in relation to how the management plan and the plans of various institutions of learning in the province must be a submission coming back from various schools in the province through the district directors and also the circuit managers that we have. But from where we are seated, we have been having items of the furniture at a rate of 51,862, which we have been able to disperse them to our schools. And this is one area that I think SG we have been excellently performing as a province. We didn't have that much of a challenge in relation to the furniture in the province. On learner transport, members of the media, the number of learners that were benefiting from the scholar transport program was 124,723 as per the 2019-2021 contract. And however, subsequently to a verification process, this number was reduced into 121,031 in 2021. For 2020 academic year, a further reduction of 14.9% across all districts was requested by the Department of Transport as necessitated by the budgetary constraints. And I think this is another area which is a sore spot, which begins to suggest that there is a need of tightening up the monitoring and assessment of the impact of the scholar transport, one. Two, of also the legitimacy of the data that is being used by Department of Transport and as well Department of Education, but also the important aspect of ensuring that there are no vulnerable learners that are not transported on our schooling system on the basis of our systems not being reliable. So we have been able to deal with that, and even yesterday we have a meeting with the Department of Transport to tighten up everything, precisely because we don't want anything that is going to destabilize the learning environment in the province on the basis of either there is a conflict of interest, either from the operators or from the service providers that are providing this section from the Department of Transport. What is critical here, SG, and then the media, is that we must as well appreciate the fact that this is a shared function. This is a shared function between Department of Education and the Department of Transport. And therefore, their school of thought from a Department of Transport is critically to be subjected into the systems in education so that we understand each other, that first and foremost, we are a Department of Education. Anything else is secondary to us. Ndidla ngokuthi ke xa ndiyicacisayo le nto, umuntu okhwelisa abantwana apha eprovinsini, isikolo singena ngo7:30, yena afike ngo8, kuma isiso isikolo transport. It's something else. Makaze nenye definition. Because isikolo transport is meant to enhance the capacity of education to get as much results as possible. So if you transport learners and arrive at a wrong time, then you must give another definition. What is it? Because from where we are seated here, this is an enabler for us to be able to ensure that we don't miss anything in relation to what is expected out of us from a pedagogical point of view in education. So hence I'm trying to explain why we had to ensure that the scholar transport as part of a critical component in ensuring that we are ready to take the mandated position of the department. This is also a negative effect on the implementation of the school rationalization and realignment program, as some of the schools with smaller numbers have to be rationalized, and in most instances, scholar transport is required to ferry learners to bigger schools. We have taken a decision to halt the closure of these small schools until scholar transport is available. Last time when we met you, we were articulating on the realignment, rationalization, and alignment of schools. And that program is a program of consolidating the schooling system in the country so that you don't have unviable small schools in the system. In essence, you are then robbing the capacity of growth of the learners on the basis of them not being able to access a qualitative education system. And therefore, we then said, no, whilst you have them in the system, but you can't just willy-nilly close them on the basis that they don't meet the requirement. You must be able to align the closure of schools with other necessities that might not be negatively affecting the schooling system in the province. For example, if you close a school and you are not sure whether the Department of Transport is going to transport those kids, what kind of leadership is that? So you can't do that. So you must be sure that when you close this one on the basis that they are not within the two-tie system that is required in education. All what is expected has been done. So that's why we were then saying we are also cleansing our data to determine the actual and verified the need as the Department of Transport requires. So as a shared strategic vision between education and the Department of Transport, from time to time we have agreed in joint sessions so that we can ensure that the transition that is determined by this shared vision is managed in a much more proper way. However, we'll continue to engage with the departments and other stakeholders to appraise them of these new developments. The department, on the other hand, will continue engaging the state organs to ascertain whether there can't be any plan to mitigate some of these challenges. We remain confident that engagements with all the role players might yield a positive outcomes. On COVID-19 protocols, in order to mitigate the spread and effects of COVID-19, the occupational health and safety committees were established in all districts and are functional by now. And during the last quarter in 2021 academic year, funds were transferred to schools to purchase material for staff and learners to combat the spread of virus. Funds have been identified from the SNP grant for all schools to procure the PPEs for their learners and the staff members. As schools indicate their availability of the PPE supplies to the reopening will be responding and by attending to these requests through a budget allocated to them. This is another sore spot. And I'm proud to say we are contested on this one, SG. Because once you take monies to schools to purchase for the PPEs, there are people that think that they must tenderize department. You must everything tenderize it and ensure that you use as much money as possible, instead of saying, what is it that the department wants, and how do you then contribute on what the education as a department wants? Not you, what you want, and therefore us following you. We can't be secondary. We're primary here. So anything else must be able to toe the line. Hence, I'm then saying, for us under the current shrinking fiscus in the country, not in the province, you need innovative strategic thinking from those that have been given authority. Use the money the little you have in the best interest of the people of the province, but also in the best interest of the sector as well. Hence, the HOD, we have taken a decision to say, no. Give the schools to purchase these PPEs so that they are able to sustain themselves through the submissions that they are currently making, and ensure that no one is affected and no victim that might arise out of this particular transaction. But equally, don't make this matter a matter that is beyond approach and beyond control. So as the pandemic still rents the country, it is important that we ensure that our learners and educators are given the necessary tools to protect themselves against this virus. For this, as part of the strengthening of the efforts towards COVID-19, the 26 social workers and district coordinators have been trained on psychosocial support and are expected to cascade the training and to schools in preparation for the 2022 schooling academic year. On the availability of teachers, ladies and gentlemen, for the 2022 academic year, the department declared 53,605 educator post packet. The posts were distributed to all public ordinary schools in the province. The average range of educator-learner ratio for 2022 academic year, which is 1.331. However, across the continent, there are schools that have an educator-learner ratio below 1.31, and some are above the ratio of 1.31. When you speak about the learner-teacher ratio, you need to have some considerations, because you are speaking of quite a rural province. So you need a hybrid approach on the policy itself, so that you can sustain the smaller schools, the farm schools, the bigger schools. Because if you don't do that, the smaller unviable schools are going to eat to the belly of the bigger schools in terms of the allocation of the human resource. So that's why you must strike a balance there and be able to say, how do we sustain this hybrid outlook of the schooling system that we are currently faced with? The stability ratio of this declared post basket is at 83%, which means that 83% of schools have either retained their post or have gained the other post through the migration of the learners from one school to another and from one grade to another as well. And this therefore means that when schools opened tomorrow on the 19th, they will have requisite numbers of educators to ensure that the teaching and learning is effective and implemented. Further to this, a memo giving guidance on the management of vacancies in school has been issued and circulated in all districts. A principal's bulletin of number 1 of 2022 with a close date of 11th February has also been issued to ensure that the management in our schools is strengthened. What becomes critical for the department is to ensure that there is a teacher in front of the learner. We may theorize, TTG Mnguni, and say policy said this, policy said that. But unfortunately, education is a right, not a privilege. Education is a right, not a privilege. So that's why at times you have to overstretch the policy. You have to overstretch the policy and respond to these anomalies that result to a teacher in front of a learner, albeit whatever alignments or misalignments that are there, so that you don't then bury the kids alive on the basis of sacrosancy of a particular policy in the main. So as you perfect the system, you need to be a bit realistic and be a bit scientific in dealing with some of those questions. And hence I'm saying, at a principle point is that this leadership has committed itself to say there must be a teacher in front of the learners. Whether there is any challenge of whatever form, but there must be no kid that is not taught here on the basis of either a constraint from a particular policy. Because when you talk about education in the country, this is an over-legislated environment. Once you speak education in this country, it's an over-legislated environment, sometimes with legislations overlapping against each other. So you need to be a bit careful in dealing with some of those things. The department has provided schools with 7,080 posts across provincial schools, of which 6,621 have been filled, leaving 459 still vacant. The department is currently in the process of developing norms which will regulate fair and equitable distribution of the post to all schools based on the scientific model. It is envisaged that this work study exercise will be conducted during the 2020.
All right, we're coming out of that address by the MEC for Education in the Eastern Cape briefing on the reopening of schools.